Good morning. It is Tuesday, October 13th and the start of a new weekly reading vlog. So I am currently listening to The Lion Game by Ruth Ware. I mentioned in my last vlog that this is the last Ruth Ware book that I have on her backlist to listen to, which is so sad. But I'm already enjoying it. I am a few hours into the audiobook, which is narrated by the same person who's narrated the rest of Ruth Ware's books, and she is just fantastic. So I'm a few hours into that one. And I'm also physically reading Hero of Ages. So as far as my plans for reading this week, I'm gonna finish The Lion Game, and then the next one I have on Libby from my library. I have the Night Circus on audio checked out, and we'll see if that's something that can click with me on audio. I really enjoyed physically reading The Starless Sea. I do actually now have the audiobook of that one. So I'd be curious to reread that and listen to that one on audio and just kind of see the experience of that. But just with her, I'm just mostly thinking of her writing style being something that I enjoyed slowly taking in. So we'll see if audiobook is something that can click with me for Erin Morgenstern's writing. But I do have the Night Circus on audio as my next audiobook to try. And so we'll see how that goes. We'll also see what comes through in the library. I know I've got some more holds that might come in. But yeah, those are my plans. Just finish The Lion Game, read the Night Circus, get as far into the Hero of Ages as I can. I hopefully can finish that late this week, maybe mid next week, who knows. And if I get through both of those audiobooks, then I know there are some other options, but I'll just, we'll see what happens if I can get there, and I will check in later. So it is Sunday afternoon, October 18th, and I have a couple of updates from earlier on in the week. One, I finally finished Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I finished the first Era Mistborn series, y'all. I fucking love this series. I love everything about it. It was so much fun. So I thought this was a wonderful conclusion. Honestly, I really liked the ending. I thought it just tied everything together in a really interesting way. And I just, once again, just really loved being in this world for, 3 long books. It was just such an interesting and compelling world with interesting creatures, interesting politics, interesting characters, and just dynamics that I think Brandon Sanderson explores really well. And so I'll back up and give just like quick synopsis in case you're not familiar with this series. So this series follows a world where metals are kind of the basis for magical power. Certain people can burn one metal and use that for power, but if you can burn all of the kinds of metals in this world, then you are a Mistborn. And you follow a couple of Mistborns and kind of a ragtag crew of people who are trying to kind of coalesce a rebellion against a dark lord, a dark ruler who has been ruling for 1,000 years. And it just gets so much more complicated, and the world just really opens up. And it opens up in such a cool way. So I, first of all, love this group of characters. I think they're just rich and interesting and just such a dynamic crew that I just loved following the entire time. I loved kind of new characters that came along throughout the series. And, they're complicated characters. I think he does complicated characters pretty well, and he just kind of shows a lot of just raw, interesting emotion and just really compelling characters through the way he's telling this story. And also just super interesting politics that I think really shows some real world struggles with how hard it is to sometimes have a bunch of different groups of people try to live together in one place. And I think the politics is super interesting throughout the series. You can kind of understand and follow why it gets to be so complicated, and really empathize with the characters as they're trying to figure out what the best next move is. And again, the world is just super interesting. I can just picture everything, the ash, the mist, the shadows, and just, going around to the different parts of this world. It was always super fun. Yeah, I just freaking loved everything about this series. I really, really did. And I, as with the other two, listened to the audiobook as I was physically following along. I think it'll be really fun to do a reread and actually annotate this series, and I definitely plan on doing that at some point in the future. And I had a phenomenal time with this one, as I have with all of this series. So definitely going to be a huge favorite of the year, and just in general a favorite series. There's some more I need to sit with and think about, but just it's just such a compelling world with such interesting and complex characters, and it was so much fun. I loved it. The other thing that I have to update you on is that I finished The Lion Game by Ruth Ware. This one was by far my least favorite Ruth Ware book, and I think that was for a couple of main reasons. One, I typically love the slow build-up that she has in her books, so they are very slow thrillers. And I've kind of talked about the way that they start incredibly slowly, but she does a really good job ratcheting up the tension throughout the story and really, really kind of having that build-up pay off. That didn't really happen for me in this one. I thought it was by far her slowest book, but also just that build-up wasn't there, that payoff wasn't there, just in terms of the thrilling elements of the story. And I think the other problem, I suspected that this might be my least favorite one just based on the synopsis and the kind of story that she was telling in this one. And unfortunately, what I was worried might happen, I think kind of did. So this follows a group. You follow four main characters. You follow the perspective of one of these characters, Isa Wilde, and she had three friends that she met in school, at a boarding school. And so you follow both the present day, they're kind of in their early 30s, early to mid 30s, in the present day, and then you also kind of flash back to their school days, them meeting and kind of going through certain parts of their school year. And they have a game, essentially, that involves lying to people, and they kind of get points by getting away with lying to people. And at first it's just kind of a silly game that they like to play. They like to kind of get back at the people who kind of like to pick on people and kind of bully people. It's mostly their way of kind of getting back at people kind of in power at this school, and they don't tend, or like one of the things that they want to do is not necessarily pick on kind of the younger people at the school, or kind of new people at the school, or people who kind of have less power at the school. But they have a game where essentially they just like lie to a bunch of people. And so right off the bat I'm like, well, that's not a great idea. And you kind of realize as the story's going on that there kind of was one lie that in particular was something that kind of haunts these characters. And you realize that it involves, it takes a while in the story to kind of figure out exactly what the secret surrounds, and kind of other characters that were involved, that kind of are involved with this secret. And one of Isa's schoolmates texts her in the present day as they're in their 30s. She just texts and tells the whole group, "I need you." And so they all immediately drop what they're doing, kind of go back. The friend that texted lives around the school still, and they immediately go back and try to figure out what's going on, and kind of something has come to a head with this secret. And so she's like, I need to tell you about this development, and it kind of relates to this secret that they've been keeping for 17 years. And so that's kind of the setup. And I don't tend to like stories about rich people problems or like well-to-do, well-off people problems. And it's not necessarily that all of the characters are like particularly well-off, or just stories that follow people who make bad decisions and then need to suffer the consequences of those decisions. So I basically found myself throughout the story just going, yep, you made some real bad decisions, and your age at the time does not excuse some of these decisions. and you're paying the price for those decisions. And that's basically the story. And so, you know, there's obviously a lot more going on, but still, that was kind of the gut feeling that I had throughout most of the story, was that it was slower than a lot of her other ones. There were less thrilling elements than all of her other books, and that ultimately I just had no sympathy, or very little sympathy, for the main character and the main set of characters and the situations that they were in. And so I don't know, I just found myself caring less about this story and this group of people, and ultimately just didn't love it as much as I liked some of her other books, which is really unfortunate, but, you know, is what it is. You win some, you lose some, you know? And so those are the two updates, kind of polar opposite updates, but those are the two updates. So after I finished Hero of Ages physically, I am now picking up Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. We've got this lovely spider on the cover. I'm super arachnophobic, so that's fun. But I'm picking up Forest of Souls. I just started this, so I literally have very few thoughts so far. Just picked it up last night and read, you know, a chapter and a half or something. But I am picking that up as my next physical book. I also started the Night Circus on audio, and I will talk about this one a little bit more probably in my next update. I just started it, so I don't have a ton of thoughts yet, but I'll probably talk a little bit more about it when I wrap up this vlog, probably tomorrow morning. So I'll let you know how it's going so far, but I think I'm like 4 hours into the audiobook, and I'm loving it so far. So we'll see how that goes, but I'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow morning. So until then, and it is Monday morning, so time to wrap up this reading vlog. So definitely a bit of a mixed reading week. Definitely the high point was finishing the Hero of Ages and finishing the first Era Mistborn series. I love everything about that series, and didn't love The Lion Game. The only Ruth Ware book I haven't really liked, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. And I am barely into Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. This will be my next physical read, and I am currently, as far as my next audiobook, or my current audiobook, I am 62% into the audiobook of The Night Circus. And I said I would talk a little bit more about this one. So as far as a synopsis, there really isn't a ton to say about a synopsis, because literally the name of the book is like, that's the synopsis. It is about a circus that comes at night. It's a traveling circus, and there's not really an announcement for when the circus is going to appear, where it's going to appear. It just kind of appears, and it, you know, runs from night to dawn, and it is the venue for a competition between two magicians who fall in love. Like literally that is the story, at least. Like you know, obviously there's a little bit more to it, I guess, but the point of the book is not necessarily the action or the plot. It's the writing, and it's an atmosphere, and I think she accomplishes that atmosphere, at least so far, is accomplishing that atmosphere incredibly well. This book like is fall, and so this is the perfect time to read it. And yes, I'm really enjoying just the atmosphere and the whimsy of this book. Like, I am being swept off my feet by this book, and yeah, I can definitely understand that it's definitely a bit weird and not going to be to everyone's taste, and that makes perfect sense for Erin Morgenstern's writing style. I did enjoy I did enjoy her other book, The Starless Sea, which I read earlier this year, I believe in January. So I was hopeful that I would like this one, because I had heard from some people who had read both of her books that if you liked one, you might like the other. So I still have more to go, so I'll talk more about it in next week's reading vlog as well. But I'm just so captured by this book. And the audiobook too, Jim Dale narrates, and he is perfection for this audiobook. So I was a little bit nervous about whether or not the writing style would be conducive to audio, or whether it was something that you needed to kind of slowly take in physically, which I think is also going to be a good way to read this book. But I was a little bit worried that there would be something missing from kind of not slowly physically absorbing this. book, but I'm adoring the audiobook and adoring Jim Dale's narrator. Anyway, so I'll talk more about it next week, but I'm just really charmed by this book, and the atmosphere of this book is exactly what I wanted from it, so very excited to continue. So that has been my reading week, and you know, as I said, up and down, but mostly up. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll be sure to link my Twitter and Instagram down below. That's where I like to hang out. I'll also be sure to link more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.